Oklahoma, Ms. Bice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the witnesses for being here this afternoon, and a special shout out to Dr. Drogmeyer, who is my fellow Oklahoman. I want to direct this first question to Ms. Wentz-Smith, and that is, in your opening statement, you talked a little bit about the Valley of Death, and I had an opportunity to sit at a round table yesterday with Chairman Lucas, with technology innovation owners that are trying to really, ensure that we have superior capabilities over our adversaries, including China. But that was also brought up. What do you think we as Congress can be doing to try to bridge that gap, whether it's existing programs that need to be modified or other ways that we can continue to promote that type of needed innovation?
Thank you for that very important question. And I have to say, I've been working on this issue for most of my career, so I hope someday I'll never hear Valley of Death. One of the issues is that we do not have a financing system in the United States that moves beyond the initial kind of startup phase into manufacturing. And I'll just share an example. Back in the 90s and even earlier, this country invented every single flat panel display technology, the first being liquid crystals out of Kent State, plasma, field emitters, the list went on. And there was lots of venture capital coming into that. But then it was time to make the manufacturing plant and scale it up. Not a penny. All of that went to Asia. We have the example of A123 battery. Hundreds of millions went into that, including from the Department of Energy, the state of Michigan. Again, it was the manufacturing scale-up that takes lots of money. So we have to figure out in our country a way to bridge that. It's not going to be from traditional venture capital. Our banks are not engaged in this. There are no incentives for that. We have called at the Council for many, many years for a national infrastructure bank. Many countries have that, where they could make these large-scale investments on the manufacturing side. And this is very relevant to commercializing the fusion. It is an all-nation hand. We're not going to get to where we could if we don't have massive investment from the government and private sector. But on the Valley of Death, we really need to have some expanded programs, including SBIRs. There are companies that just spend their time getting SBIR grants. It's kind of an industry. And I can tell you, when I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce, there were groups outside the United States who would look at those SBI awardees. They knew they couldn't go after Stage B, and they'd come in and acquire them. And that's happening now in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. So having SBR Stage C that takes it farther on is one mechanism, and the states could actually contribute that as well. It doesn't need to be just federal. So it really requires new models and really moving out of our traditional mode of thinking, oh, we do have a great venture capital industry, but they don't invest in the kinds of things we're talking about here.
Happy to open the question up for any of the other witnesses if you'd like to comment. If not, I'll follow up on another question. Okay. The second question is that, America's economic future is dependent on successfully driving innovation and productivity growth in all parts of the country. What role will regional innovation initiatives have in securing U.S. leadership in research and technology? And this is open to any of the panelists.
I think regional innovation is key, and again, back to the diversity question, we need to bring the technological capabilities and development opportunities to those regions, because we want to transform the regions. We don't want to take the people out of the regions. Maybe their families have been there for 50, 60 years. We want to lift those regions up, and so I think that the regional and sort of, I think as we heard, the place-based innovation is really critical. NSF is doing this now with the EPSCoR program. I think a lot of you are familiar with this. Whereas before it was, hey, how can we help increase the research competitiveness? Now the focus is on what they're calling jurisdictional transformation, getting the universities, getting the small business community, getting the federal, or getting the state governments rather, getting the chambers of commerce together and say, how can we transform our entire state using science and technology? Oklahoma is a very rural state. North Carolina is a rural state. There are a lot of great opportunities to do innovation, to get these folks involved, but we have to really think about about how to resource that and do that and build these partnerships at the state level in particular, or in the regional level as well. And I think that's really a key to our future, is not just doing it at the well-resourced places, but having every zip code of the country become involved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Now I'd like to recognize Ms. Salinas.